how do people find your robots? Like, how do you get them to market now? How is AIS getting to market?
Right now, we are in the process of getting the robots commercialized. So up to now, what we've done is, if you look at our website, you'll see the robots being tested in different venues, in hospitality, in malls, and right now we're looking at airports, the healthcare industry. So you'll see some videos of our robots being tested.
Yeah.
So we've wanted to first test it to make sure it does the job. And right now we are looking at the best possible venue to commercialize it. And one of the venues to commercialize is our own circle of influence within the nursery and greenhouse environment. And then the other is healthcare and possibly other markets like hospitality and hotels. So we are looking at all options. And right now we are looking at a direct to the market route. But in order to be able to scale, we would definitely be looking for strategic partnerships for distribution and manufacturing. We do have some conversations that are ongoing right now with manufacturers and also with distributors. And we are very eager to push those forward to be ready for scaling when the time comes.
Awesome. Yeah, it sounds like, I mean, the product is kind of amazing to me. So that's why I wanted to ask the question and so people could understand it. So, So when do you think, I mean, was there a certain age where you truly found your passion for robotics? Or, I mean, I know you said it was kind of always there a little bit, but, when was like the, aha, this is what I'm doing moment now,
I believe it was in 2016 where I stopped doing everything else and just shifted right into this. And of course, it was a very steep learning curve. I had to engage myself. I had to study. And I remember once they asked me to go talk to a university about robotics. And I thought to myself, well, there are a bunch of postdoctorate robotic roboticists in this room. So what can I say to be insightful and also interesting for these people? So in instances like those, you try to educate yourself and try to put a twist on your knowledge and what you want to deliver to the audience. And I ended up picking an interesting subject that resonated with them. And that was comparing advanced robotics to practical robotics and how they're both equally important in the marketplace in order to develop technologies and then eventually to commercialize them. And that resonated with them pretty well. So I had the passion in 2016, that dynamic shift happened in how I looked at things. And then it was a continuous learning curve until today.
Yeah. Well, and that's how I feel. I mean, like I said, so my aha moment was different. I just saw a robot at a booth at a landscape show and said,
yeah,
this is my destiny. Like I literally, the universe has put me right where I am right now with my entire background to bring this to market,
It spoke to you.
It did totally. Yeah. I mean, I will look back on that moment, I'm sure, for the rest of my life, So, one other thing I want to ask about, because, you keep on talking about your influence in greenhouses and nursery. So I know we talked about the infrared robot, but explain what you're doing in nurseries. So what's the robot doing there?
Okay. Well,
because a lot of people that listen to this podcast are in the landscaping industry, and they might be literally thinking like, Joe, what are we talking about? The one that cleans bathrooms for? Let's talk about the other one. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. A lot of nurseries and greenhouses, in fact, more than nurseries, have already been exposed to the use of UV light in order to reduce the amount of pesticides and insecticides that they use within their environment. So we're not reinventing the wheel. What we're creating is a smarter way to use UV lights in the same environment. So making it autonomous, making it mobile, making it capable of gathering data and making intelligent decisions on the amount of exposure, how you want to expose it and where. So So we are looking at creating solutions for greenhouses where we can automate a lot of what they do, including the application of UV to their environments. And we have other solutions in our pipeline to automate the movement of goods along the nurseries or greenhouses with autonomous robots, autonomous vehicles that we are working on. And also, for example, taking the produce from point A to point B to be packaged or shipped, or towing a cart from point A to point B, where right now is being done with a driver and, in the outdoors using diesel tractors, and on the indoors with, different means, but automating those tasks to help them perform their work a little bit more efficient and better.
So I'm going to just put this call out right on the podcast. If you ever want to make something that does snow removal in the middle of the night and all day, you call me up. I'll give you every industry piece of knowledge I have, so I have it. Seriously.
That sounds good.
Because if you're doing this in nurseries or greenhouses, we can make something. I'm sure you can make something that pushes snow with some feedback. I say it all the time, like that is an industry that all companies like yours maybe don't think about that much, but it's the industry that's truly dying for help with labor. I mean, more than any industry you could possibly think of, just because the hours are so long, it's so cold, it's middle of the night. We'll leave it at that. Sure. I'm just planting the seed. I'm gonna get a mind like yours working.
Of course.
So, who are some of the most important mentors in your life?
Well, I would say I would start by my father. And I had another mentor who was a prof actually at the university who had a huge impact. His name was Bill Main, and he was a great guy, and I learned a lot from him. And right now, there are a lot of good people around me I learn from. I wouldn't say I have one mentor that I keep going back to for advice, but I have a lot of mentors. And the way I look at it is each one of them is really great in one area. And one of them might be great in showing me my blind spots in making strategic decisions. Another might be great in creating connections for me in areas where I want to have more connections. Another one might be great for me to take my ethical dilemmas to. So I have a lot of people around me that I go to and I confide in and get their 2 cents on how to make decisions.
Yeah. Well, I can tell, you seem very well-rounded. So it doesn't surprise me that you have many people that you can go to help you. And I'm sure you're mentoring a lot of people yourself now. So, in addition to being your industry leader, I know you teach entrepreneurial studies at 2 different universities. So obviously you just named your mentors, but it's obvious to me you also want to pass on things that right? And so
yes, I'm passionate about sharing knowledge. I think knowledge grows by sharing it.
Yes,
and I'm passionate about that.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that people overlook. When you look at life and you look at humans in particular. It's one of the things that we can really do. Everything else that's on this earth with us has to pass it down through DNA somehow. But with us, we have the ability to pass down information. And I feel like when I'm talking to younger people, that's the thing that I think, I don't know what it is. I think we all have that aha moment in our lives where we really realize that. And I think sometimes when we're younger, you don't realize it as much, so I'm always trying to get younger people to realize it earlier, so they start paying attention, So, is there any advice that then you want to give to maybe some of these younger people that are listening that want to get into robotics? Any advice you can give, right, that you would want to give that might help people?
Of course, depending on where you want to get into robotics, if you want to get into R&D for robotics through a university, it's a little bit different from when you want to get into commercializing robotics. Mm-hmm. It's easy to get superly excited and get lost in R&D when you start a robotics company. So if you want to start your own robotics company, try to stay as practical as you can and try to avoid over-engineering as much as you can. And the biggest piece of advice I can have for anyone who wants to get into robotics, the simpler your solution, the more powerful it is. Don't overcomplicate anything. The most difficult way to do robotics is to look at how simple you can create it, not how complicated you can make it.
That's great advice. I love it. So, where do you see the industry headed? I mean, obviously right now we're two guys that are pretty into robotics, but there's not a lot of people like us. I personally, I don't think the industry has even seen where it's going to go yet.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts?
Well, robotics is sexy. And I coined an award at Urban Dictionary, and the word is robo-hype. So there is a lot of robo-hype around robotics. And what robo-hype is people thinking that there's a great idea for automation, but not knowing the challenges in automating that process. So the expectation of the public is a whole lot more than the reality of the robotics world, because they hear about all this latest research that's happening, or they see some robots flip-flopping and walking and kicking and doing a bunch of things like that. But the fact is that to take that robot, make it affordable and make it practical so it can actually do something really amazing that stands out and that can solve a problem in your daily life, that's a big challenge that the robotic industry is facing right now. So where the industry is going is trying to solve the challenge of practicality in robotics, trying to solve the challenge of creating proper application engineering in the robotics field, where you can say this robot actually mows your lawn and you don't need to worry about it. It's not going to explode on you and you don't need to spend half an hour getting it to run, right?
Yeah.
So that's the kind of challenges the industry will be facing. And once we overcome these challenges little by little, then you see mass automation of things that you might not think would be able to get automated today. Give you some examples. When we look at artificial intelligence, it's usually associated with robotics, but there's artificial intelligence everywhere that has nothing to do with robotics. For example, you get into your car and a map pops up and says it's 25 minutes to get home. And over here, we have too much traffic, go from the other route, right?
Yep.
So we are used to it right now. But 20 years ago, this was out of this world. You can imagine you would be able to have it. Same thing is going to happen to automation. Things will get automated slowly but surely, but you would be able to compare it to 20 years ago and it will awe you, it will wow you, but we'll get used to it as it happens to us.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I believe, but tell me if maybe you think I'm wrong in my belief, that as these certain systems come out and people figure out a way to automate, mowing grass, doing, disinfecting bathrooms. Okay. And now, especially hearing what you're doing, making it modular, the cost, when you're saying how expensive is it to get that robot to do a backflip or walk around, people don't realize how much it costs to get that prototype out there. But I feel like all the money's in the R&D, right? It's the research and development to get, that's where a lot of the money's tied up. Once you start to scale it out and put these things out into use, now you can start spreading that R&D out, and now it becomes more affordable, and it becomes more of an affordable solution, right?
Yeah, I think all the money is in R&D if you look at the big picture, and I agree with you. There's a huge amount of R&D. But that being said, even the components that are used in robots right now, some of them are pretty expensive. But they are becoming cheaper. Every year, the functionalities are becoming better and the price is going down significantly. So you're right. Down the road, same thing that happened to computers. Every year is, a better, faster computer at half the price.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
same thing is going to be happening to robots down the road. And hopefully, we'll get somewhere where we can automate things that we don't want to do completely from A to Z.
Yeah. Well, it's exciting to think about the future because like that's what I tell a lot of people right now that are getting involved in automation, and they almost seem impatient, right? They're just like, oh my gosh, it's never going to take off. And I'm like, listen, if you get into it now, when it does take off, you're going to be leveraged very, very, very favorably, because you're already going to be in it. You're not going to be playing catch up. So
I agree.
So, is there anything else that you feel like passionate about creating that you're not already doing, or is where you're at right now, the things you're creating, you feel like that's really the wave and where you want to be hyper focused on right now?
We are hyper focused on where we want to go, and we are passionate about creating other things, but then you have to create a balance between the two, right?
Yeah.
And keep your focus to be able to deliver something that you've started working on, and then shift the passion eventually into other areas. But we are working on a bunch of drive-by-wire technologies, and taking a vehicle and making it autonomous by removing the hydraulics and replacing them by electronic controllers. Mm-hmm. So those are the things that we're working on, and we always have things in our pipeline that we plan to work on once we free up some space. And we love looking at things from kind of an intellectual property perspective, saying like, can we add value here? Can we create something new? And we don't want to reinvent the wheel. We want to keep adding more stuff and make life easier for others. So so that's the outlook we have, what we'll be doing in the future.
So if you had to start all over again, is there anything you would the 20-year-old self would tell you for right now, or do you feel like it's all played out exactly how it should have?
I love this question because I ask this question from everyone I meet,
Really?
I love it. Like, what would you change about your past on any front? Doesn't matter where. Yeah. And I have no regrets. And I think we are a byproduct of the journey that we've gone through. And the first thing we need to do is to start loving ourselves in order to be able to be productive parts of society and to love everybody else and to be able to help, in mass. So in order to love yourself, you have to own everything you've done to date and come to terms with it and love it and cherish it. So if I could go back, I would do the exact same things I've done to get where I am today. I wouldn't change a bit. Doesn't mean that I've been the most productive. Doesn't mean that I haven't made mistakes. I've made a ton of mistakes, and I could have done things that would have ended me somewhere else, Yeah. But where I am today is where I want to be, and I'm enjoying every second of it, every minute of it. So I wouldn't change anything.
That's awesome. Great answer. And so I do like the question also, and the reason I do, it's like, every sci-fi movie that you've ever seen with a time machine, it's like, don't alter anything or it changes your reality. And what I found was anybody who's happy, truly happy, and it goes to you saying you've got to love yourself, right? Anybody that's just truly happy with the life they've lived in to this point, why would you want to change anything? I always say to people, I had very few regrets in my life. The one regret I had was not playing college football. I was a good high school player. I'm a big guy, but I'll never know what I could do in high school. But if I go back and play college football, I don't have my daughter, and she's literally the best thing I have in my life. So anyways, I love your answer. It was great. So, one of the things another question I always ask, I'm a big believer in companies nowadays. It's harder and harder to manage an employee. And people don't want to be managed anymore. Yeah. So I think the most successful companies moving forward are going to have, these core values. And I have to say, I have a mentor of mine. His name's Gary, and he has a podcast himself, and he brought a guy on that talked about a core values committee. So I like to ask people, like, if you have any, particular core values, and if so, are they set up at your current company?
Yes. So the core values that are set up at our company are trust, accountability, and empowerment. And of course, transparency. Everybody needs to have transparency. So what we do is we empower our team members in order to be able to be their best. And we allow them to make mistakes, and we lead by example, So whether you like it or not, you always lead by example, because people look at you and they learn from it. So if you empower somebody to do something without penalizing them for their mistakes, as long as they are trying to be 100% accountable for whatever they do, at the end you build teams who are loyal and who would go to the bats for you. And you have to acknowledge your shortcomings too, and you allow them to do the same, but you don't hold it against them. We just identify how we can help each other grow. And at the end of the day, we're all human beings, and we're allowed to make mistakes.
Yeah, that sounds great. And I think that, most people that I talk to that are very successful, they almost answer that exactly the same. I mean, you would, people that listen would think we're all copying off of each other, but it's more of just, we're enlightened. You kind of realize, like, this is what works best. Because, I always tell people, one of the things when I realized my passion was in being an entrepreneur was to really realize that you can almost, like, one of the things when I'm running my company is I think about the worst ways I've ever been managed and just try to tell myself to never manage someone that way, So, I think it's great to have the values, and those are perfect. So what do you think? I mean, I already kind of know, but what are things you're doing that differentiates you from your competitors? I mean, I feel like you're going to tell me the plug and play type scenario, but I want you to put it in your words.
Yeah. I would say our modularity and trying to be a fully integrated solution to what we create. We try to do everything from A to Z for the product that we put out, and we use our modularity in order to create and deliver more value to the end users. So that's our difference.
Good. And what are you? So sometimes I skip this question, but I feel like we're so much alike. I kind of want to hear if we share any of these things. So, are there any, like, books or movies that you really love or that you feel like really stick with you?
There are two movies that I truly love. One is Ratatouille. And it
That's
shows...
my daughter's favorite movie. That is literally, if my daughter wasn't in school right now, she would be like jumping up and down. That's my daughter's favorite movie.
Yeah, it's my favorite movie too. And I love it because it shows resilience, and it shows how to break biases and stereotypes, and how there's big messages in this movie. It says, hey, don't be afraid, go ahead and do it. And doesn't matter how they stereotype you, try to break that and be who you are and achieve your goals. Yeah. So that's Ratatouille. And for the books, I love a book that I recommend to everybody to read. It's a simple book about philosophy of life. And it's called The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. It's a very easily readable book, very thin book, and it talks about everything from work to life to justice to children, family, love, everything. And it's got a couple of pages on every subject, and it's a reference book. It's something you can go back to, and it resonates with you. It's a bestseller. It's a classic. And on the business side of things, I like Ray Dalio's Principles. It's an eye-opening book, and he says, don't be afraid of throwing things out there and see how the team will come back to you with solutions, and be transparent and allow people to live and work, but stay true to your principles, and that's what will get you through thick and thin.
Awesome. Yeah, so those are good. So hopefully people that listen will look those up. The one of the things that I tell people, I'm not a big reader, so I never have books. I like, it's one of the reasons I do podcasts. I like to hear people talk and stuff. But my favorite movie, just so you know, is actually Interstellar. And the reason I love that movie is it's because of the relationship with his daughter, and so it just kind of shows that scene where have you seen Interstellar? You know,
yes,
the scene where he's in the black hole and he's pushing the books and it all comes back. It's like, I mean, I get the chills even talking about it. And then I love the show Cosmos, you know, so I'm very into like science and putting things into perspective, you know, where we are and how small a time that we're actually here and the impact we're making. So, you know, to kind of round it out, you know, we're kind of getting to the end here. Are there any words of wisdom or past experiences that you had that you're using you're making your business better with, so someone else doesn't have to make those mistakes? You know, because you said you've learned from your mistakes as well as I have. But
of course. So if I had to talk about and this is a tough question to answer, because there's a lot you can talk about, right?
Yeah.
But if I had to boil it down to a few things, I would say in every business, value the people you're working with and empower them to help you. So help them help you. And if you value those relationships, whether it's with your employees, your suppliers, your clients and purchasers, whoever it might be, people do business with people. And if they love that relationship and who you are and how you value those relationships, you know, you won't fall. They'll carry you through.
Awesome advice. So this is always the big one. This one typically is the stumper for everybody, but what do you want your legacy to be?
Somebody who's done things right. That's all. I want love and kindness to be left behind when I leave. I don't care about anything else, because it doesn't matter how big. Edison, the biggest legacy ever. Einstein, the biggest legacy ever, right? But if you still look at what's really important about Einstein, it's the letter he wrote to his daughter, right? And so once you get to know people as people rather than what they've invented, and that sticks with you. So I want everybody to know me as somebody who always tried to do the right thing.
Awesome. Well, I will certainly say that this has been a pleasure to interview you. I actually wish we had unlimited amounts of time to continue on. Maybe we'll have to do this again. Maybe we'll make it like a yearly thing or something to catch up on where we're at, because technology is always evolving. But I want to thank you very much for your time. Actually, there's one more question I'll ask while we're just on here. We always have a song, you know, that we have. What is your song going to be, and why is it your song?
We are the world, USA for Africa.
Awesome.
Because the song was geared towards bringing everybody together.
Yeah, that's a great song. I'm glad you picked it. Awesome. Well, thank you. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it. I wish you the best of luck. I love that we're both trying to do similar things in the industry, and we're going to have a lot of fun in the future, I can tell.
Thank you so much, Joe, and we'll definitely be in touch.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.